So 25 years ago, I would have told you that the major issue in buildings was holding your roof down, so put in some hurricane clips. That's not the first step. And what they found is that, can you go back one? They found that in these three levels, bronze, silver, gold, and for new construction, it's a code plus issue. The first three are basically the building code, but attention to more detail. And the first thing they found in bronze, which is the first level of improvement that you can make in the building, is feasible. It requires roof modification. So very easy to do if you're re-roofing or new construction. It gets complicated and less effective if you're not re-roofing. So with all the new roofs that are going in North Carolina right now, it's a really good time to look closely at these bronze provisions. So what it does is look at extra nailing in the roof deck. When the roof deck blows off in a whole 4x8 sheet of plywood, you got a big leak and a real problem, and if you don't put enough nails in it, you're gonna have serious trouble. So one of the things they want you to do is to look at the nailing when you can see it when you're re-roofing. So you tell your roofing contractor, look at the nails and make sure it fits with the bronze requirements. And it's generally more nails than you'd see in a 10-year-old house. So you're gonna have to add some nails, but nails are cheap, and it shouldn't cost you more than $50 to add some nails. It also has the most important thing, and that's a secondary water protection. So what they found is that if your shingles blow off, because of the way plywood expands and contracts with temperature, it's necessary to put 1/8 of an inch gap between every sheet of plywood and your roof. So if you lose all your shingles, it goes down to the first seam between the plywood deck, and then it goes into your house. So what they are suggesting or requiring for bronze certification is that you put some seal over that underneath your shingles, but attach tight enough the roof so if you blow all your shingles off the roof, the secondary layer of protection is going to keep it from going through the cracks in the sheet of plywood. So that one's really important. It also requires a certified high wind shingle. Most of what is sold in coastal North Carolina is already that, but it has to meet their highest standards, which is, if you're into roofing, I think it's a G or H. Anybody remember what it sounded about right? You have to look at roof vent attachments and reinforced gable ends, because that's a significant problem. So we look at those. Losing the roof deck has major leak issues. It also has problems with the gable end attachments. That's something we've seen a little bit of here in North Carolina. I just got back from Mexico Beach, and they had more than their share of problems. But as one indicator, part of their problem is I had a flat tire or a slow leak in a tire I had to get fixed yesterday, and I had a staple stuck in my tire. Staple. If you're attaching your roof with staples, you're going to have wind problems. So those have got to be ring shank nails and enough nails to hold the deck down, but there's specs on how to do that. The secondary water protection, there are 4 different ways you can do that. The simplest and least expensive is to simply use a sticky back tape that is the same stuff is used on zip system buildings. Anybody knows those green buildings with the tape all over them? That sticky back tape sticks to the roof deck and seals every seam in the roof, the whole roof. And if you drive a nail through it, the material is self-sealing, so it tightly gaps and seals against the nails. So the minimum you can do is simply tape all the seams. The second method you can use is to take 3-foot sheets of the same stuff and put it entirely over the roof of the building. And that's used in the Northeast for ice dam protection. It's been around for decades. It's a proven attachment that works great up there, and the issue is bringing it down to here where it's not in common use for ice issues.
Can I
Go back.
question on the last one?
Not yet.
Okay.
Go back one? Yeah. Okay. The third method is simply 3 layers or 2 layers of 30-pound roofing felt. So it's the same roofing felt you're normally using, it's just a heavier layer and they're double overlap. So not much difference. And the fourth one is a synthetic membrane. It's a big sheet of a plastic-like material that covers the entire roof system in big 20-foot sheets. And it has to be sealed, and all of these materials have to be adequately attached. So you can't just stick it on the roof. You got to make sure you put enough fasteners and attachments to the secondary water protection independently of the shingles. And if you don't do it right, they'll flunk you. So learning or getting a contractor that can put it in the right way is an important issue. And now your question.
I didn't understand number 2, and I particularly don't understand how number 2 relates to the one you actually show on the right.
Well, this stuff is you don't want a sticky back.
I understand number 1.
Okay, well, it's just a 3-foot roll of that same stuff you put over the entire roof, just like you would your roofing fill.
Yeah, it's a bitumen.
But it's a synthetic that it sticks to the roof and is self-sealing when you put a needle around it. And it covers the entire roof in 3-foot rolls.
Okay. That was number 2.
2.
Okay.
And this would be actually that is number 2. He's got a 3-foot sheet that he's rolling out and is going to peel off the sticky back.
Do they specify the thickness and all of that?
There are American Society of Testing Materials specifications for all of these that you have to buy the right stuff that's been tested.
Thank you.
Vents are chronic failure mode. The vents blow off because there are not enough fasteners. So one of the requirements for bronze is somebody's got to inspect the vents and make sure you got enough nails to hold it down on the roof. Gable ends are a chronic leak problem even when they don't structurally fail. If you ride around beach communities and look at gable ends, there are all kinds of strange things out there. This one's from Curie Beach. Notice that white thing? That's a rope to a pulley at the other end of the attic. So when the wind blows hard, he goes in and yanks on it and closes it up and gable end in. So they'll leak even if there's no structural damage to it. That can be a significant problem, so you have to deal with that to get the bronze status. And next, it can get worse. Particularly when you don't attach the roof deck very well, it's very easy for the entire gable end to blow off. And there are requirements that you have to reinforce the connections between the gable end and the rest of the roof system. So even if you lose some structural damage in the roof deck, that you've still got enough capacity to keep the gable in place. So all of those have to be complied with to fit the bronze certification. You have to hire an evaluator to do that, to look at it and inspect it. He tells you what you've got to do to bring it up to grade. And the next. Now, if you're re-roofing, you can get to all of that really easy. If you're not re-roofing, you can't do the first 3 things because you can't see them. You can't re-nail it, the deck. You can't add secondary water protection from the top, and you can't add a high roof covering because it's already got a roof covering on it. You can do the other 2, but what you have to do if you're not re-roofing is for the next click. You have to attach it from the inside, and that's not easy. It's much more expensive, and it's not as good, so the discounts aren't as high. So this is really a major issue if you're re-roofing or got a new roof, but it's not if you've got an existing one. I've got a perfectly good roof I put on after Fran and Bertha, and I'd love to have done this stuff, but I'm not going to fix it until it blows off, and it did fine in Florence. And the way you fix it from the inside, this is a picture from inside the attic on a set of roof trusses. You use a closed cell foam to use both reinforcing the attachments to the roof deck and water sealing every single crack in the plywood roof deck. It's an awful lot of work, and it's very hard to work in the outer eaves of the buildings. So I don't recommend it unless you're really challenged for nothing to do. Next slide. Okay, fortified silver is the next step up, and it requires all the bronze requirements. So the insurance company said sealing your roof is the most important thing you need to do to reduce their claims and protect your building. So that's new and important. Next, it starts with full impact glass or shutters. So you've got to have wind protection so you don't get water penetrating through broken windows, and you don't get internal pressures that tend to blow your roof off after you've got a broken window. You've got to have high-grade wind garage doors. You got more gable in reinforcement, and you need improved porch and carport anchorage. Next slide. So certified windows and doors or shutters are acceptable. Again, you've got to have the testing requirements to submit and show that it was put in as required by the manufacturers. Next slide. Garage doors are a common problem, but you can easily get high wind garage doors now here in North Carolina. And porch roofs are a chronic problem, particularly here in North Carolina, but they're a problem everywhere. This was taken from Topsail Island after Hurricane Fran, about 20 yards away. There were 12 porch roof failures in view at the same time. So while we've been anchoring buildings since the mid-1960s for most of the roof and walls, we've been doing a lousy job of porches. So if you've got a weakness on a coastal building, the place to start is looking at your porch. Fortified gold, the next step up is all of the bronze and silver. You've got to look at the detailed load paths. Somebody's got an engineer usually has got to look at the capacity all the way from the peak of the roof down to the piling foundation. It may require some disassembly to inspect it. If you can't see where the load path is, then you may have to pull something apart on the building, some siding or something else. There needs to be a clear path all the way down. And you need wind-rated windows and doors. The impact resistance was in silver. The wind rating capacity is in gold. And then the next step up is called Fortified for Safer Living. And in that case, it's code plus. You add 20 miles per hour to the wind code in your local area, and you got to design it specifically for that purpose. That's usually only new construction. It needs to be engineered and evaluated, reviewed before it's constructed, if you want to qualify for that one. And that's the highest level of discounts.
The 2019 wind code is 150 miles an hour, unless I'm in error. Plus 20 on that?
Save that question.
Okay.
Good question. Save it.
Yeah.
So that's the bad news. Next. So load path, all the way to the peak of the roof to the piling foundation. In this case, it's plywood. You got some wind anchors in the next slide, sort of holding the roof to walls together, so you can trace it all the way down. But in this case, you can see it. You can't see it in an existing building, then you got to pull something apart to prove that it's there. Next slide. So how much can you save? You know, these things are complicated, but I tried to cover everybody. You know, just let's take the southern beaches. So the bronze level is going to get you 6%, silver 12.7, 15.3, and 16.7 for code plus. And again, the closer you are to the ocean, the higher the discounts and the higher the premiums, so you save more money if you're in the worst case conditions. So that gets to be a significant savings. And that first bronze one is the most important. If you can't comply with that, you can't comply with everything. And the next. So how much is it going to cost you is the deal. These buildings have to be evaluated by a trained evaluator that knows how this system works, and you need somebody that knows this stuff. They do the initial inspection. They give you a report on what you need to do to qualify for each of these, and even some advice on whether it's going to be cost effective or not. If you've got a bad gable end, like I do, they'll tell you it's not worth your effort. I got a brick veneer. If I tear out the brick, I can fix it. I'm not going to tear out the brick. So that's really important. It's probably going to take a couple inspections as you're going along to make sure it's done as specified. And then a final inspection, and these are much easier on existing construction. So for the low end, just to have it inspected is probably going to cost you $150. I mean, these are personal issues with a local evaluator. There's a list of them on the IBHS home site, which you can deal with any of those on the list. They've trained an awful lot of adjusters lately for the next program I'm going to talk about. The adjusters are primarily trained for bronze, and they're not as good for silver and gold. So if you really want those higher levels of discounts, you really need to find an evaluator that's trained for the whole process. And it's worth paying a little extra for him other than the adjuster. So bottom line is $150, and the next one, it can probably get you up for a full-blown gold or silver to $375 or $600 is kind of the ballpark. Now remember the $600 because I'm going to bring that up later, next slide. Okay, that was the premium discounts. That's when you go to your insurance agent and say, I don't want to pay that much, I've done this, give me a discount. All right. These are wind insurance incentives that are only available through the wind pool. That's the NCJUA and NCIUA. Those pools are established because the private companies don't want to cover your house, they don't want the risk. The state requires that if they want to do any business in North Carolina, they have to be a percentage player in the wind pool. So if State Farm has 20% of the business in the state, they have to cover 20% of the wind pool. They don't have a choice. That's what it takes to do business. It's at a higher premium by about 15% than what they will charge you straight up. So it's a higher, not competing with them if they want to cover you first. But I got thrown out by State Farm, so be it. Okay, within the beach territories, the best offer is if you've had a claim, and Lawrence, there are lots of claims. If it's greater than a 50% claim, they will pay for the entire increased cost of compliance for the inspections and for the added work and materials to make bronze. So if you've got a claim that you're going to pay anyway, you're going to pay to upgrade your roof if you ask them for it. Pretty good deal. You probably don't, if you're qualifying, you got a flyer in the mail that told you they were going to do it, but you probably didn't read it. So what I've got in here is the thing that was in your insurance letter that tells you what it is and how much it offers. So carry that to your insurance agent and your adjuster and say, this is what I want to do. The next, in the coastal counties, and this is off the beaches, that if you're re-roofing, no damage, no claim, may be doing that, but you don't have to be. If you're re-roofing for any purpose, then they will pay up to $600 to pay for the evaluation to bring it up to bronze. So remember, the upper end of those cost estimates for an evaluation was about $600. They're going to pay up to that much for the evaluation. So they won't pay to do the materials or the added work. It's going to be, say, $500 to a couple $1,000, depending on what type of upgrade you're going to need. But they'll at least pay for the evaluation as part of your policy. Now remember, those are only on the wind pool claims and buildings. If State Farm is actually paying and covering your wind insurance, then State Farm doesn't have to do that, and they won't do it. It's not in their policies. So the next one. And since I'm a flood guy, I got to put in flood incentives. There are also incentives built into the flood insurance program, and they're much bigger than most people think. The first foot of freeboard is worth around 24%. In the V zone, go up to 4 feet. On an $8,000 policy, that can save you over $5,000 a year for 4 feet of freeboard. Some pretty big discounts, particularly if you're looking at new construction. And freeboard is the king. If you want to lose your building, just underestimate the wave heights, and it probably won't be there when you get there. So, now, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in the flood program. There are two legislations in 2012 and 2014 that entirely changed the flood insurance pricing structure, and those penalties went in 12, and they were delayed in 14. But if you've got an older building, they're headed your way, and it's only a matter of time. So that's another one where, next slide. ask your insurance agent. And they're gonna keep raising your rates in an old pre-firm building as long as you wanna let them, as high as they wanna go. So if you don't stop them with an elevation certificate, they'll go as high as they can get away with. Any questions? This handout is available on our website at that email address, that web address, and we're going to hope to get it up on the website for NC Byway as well. Wind codes, another one of my pet peeves. The changes that North Carolina is about to implement show an increase in the wind design requirement that's significantly higher than it ever has been in the past. So it looks like the standards are going up. In fact, they are going down. As of January 1st of 2019, the wind codes along the coast will drop by about 10 miles per hour in wind speed compared to what they are today, and about 25 to 30% in wind load. So the force requirements for a roof after January of next year will be going down 20 to 30%, believe it or not. Now, back in 2010, the national standards for winds, called the American Society of Civil Engineers 7, that standard was modified that did two things at the same time. The first thing it did was change the published wind maps from a 50-year wind to a 700-year wind by moving the safety factors from the equation to get the loads into the wind speed. So it used to be you took the 50-year wind, put it in an equation, multiplied it by 1.6 to get a force. They changed that so that you no longer have to put the 1.6 safety factor in it. It's all built into the wind speed, and that means the wind speed number is a lot higher than it would have been at a 50-year. A 700-year wind speed is a lot higher than a 50-year wind speed. Should be obvious, like a flood increase. At the same time they made that change, there are no measurements of wind speeds in hurricanes like there are for inland areas where we've got lots of thunderstorms for Raleigh. Raleigh and most of the inland part of the country is based on a thunderstorm wind gust, and it's measured at airports. Hurricanes, all the anemometers fail and break down, so there are no measurements we can use for hurricane velocities. They have to be modeled. And what the modelers have come up with in the last 15 years is that the decay rate once the wind speed moves inland is faster than was measured in earlier attempts. And they're now pre-storm wind speed gauges that are going in all over the country when a storm threatens. So they've got a pretty good idea that the wind speeds drop as they get over the land. So they made these two changes at the same time. The 50 to 700 year number change is a lot bigger than the other one, and that change is what's leading to this drop in the wind standards. Now, at the same time, the guys that made the reduction in wind speeds because of the decay rate said, yeah, the actual wind speeds are going down, but the way we apply them to the roof isn't working real well. So if you want to apply it to a specific spot on the roof, the pressure coefficients that vary over any roof system were inadequate, so they raised that same number. What happened in the North Carolina Code and in the national codes is that the first change made it in to reduce the wind speeds. The second one didn't get in that would have increased the pressure coefficients. So what we're going to face is a half-corrected building code that is actually going to lower our wind standards come January 1st. So if you've got a commercial building particularly, think about using the old standards as a minimum. That still exceeds the new standards by this 20 or 30%, and you'll end up with a much better roof in the long run. So that concludes my presentation. Practice again, ask